Welcome back to Management Information Systems. This is Chapter 4 in your MIS6 book. We're going to talk a little bit about personal, legal, and ethical issues in information systems. So we're going to talk about privacy and methods for improving privacy, privacy of email, data, and censorship, ethical issues related to information technology, principles of intellectual property, information systems, issues that affect organizations, and green computing. Some of the privacy issues that we're going to discuss are employers search social networking sites for background information on applicants. That's something that is pretty typical nowadays, and I think that you should be aware of, is that anything that you do on the web is something that can be looked at by prospective employers. They are monitoring systems. Monitoring systems are adopted by employers to check employee performance. That happens quite often as well. And also, information technology has aided in the availability of personal information. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So, web and network technology, there are things that are well-known concepts of the web and network privacy. There's an acceptable use policy, accountability, and non-repudiation. So guidelines that minimize the invasion of privacy would be to only have websites on business only have websites that conduct business rather than have private information on them. Limit your access to personal information. Ensure that the data is reliable and try to prevent the misuse of it. You have to have a purpose for the data collection you use, and try to identify the ways that personal information gathering can be disclosed and not without consent. You can minimize the invasion of privacy. The organization should use verification procedures for ensuring data accuracy. Organizations should correct and delete any incorrect data. Users should review their records to make sure they're accurate, and have a transparency in record keeping. So make for sure that you are very transparent about the kinds of things that are being kept about personal information regarding employees. So there are certain things that are referred to when you talk about email. There's something called spam, which is unsolicited email. Usually it's sent for advertising purposes. There's a lot of ease of access when it comes to emails. Most individuals assume that others have access to their messages. Any emails sent in company-owned computers are the property of the organization. So if you are on a laptop at work and you send an email, that email is the property of the employer. So they can look at your email in that case. Data collection on the web. So you have online shopping where a person may give personal information, and those are the kinds of things that can have an effect on information that's gathered by other organizations and or other advertisers to use in order to bring advertising to you. Let's say you'll see a pop-up on the side of your window when you're browsing around. Maybe you're in Facebook. All of a sudden something will pop up that you've looked at recently, and that's because cookies are sharing that data with other advertisers. So when we talk about cookies, we're talking about really small text files, and they have unique ID tags. And those cookies are used in order to bring information to advertisers and or other organizations so that they can keep track of what you're looking at. And in some cases, that's why you see things when you're browsing on the web that you've recently looked at. Maybe you're looking at cars. You'll see cars popping up all the time because you've recently looked at them. Log files are information that is generated by a web server, and it basically records a user's actions. So there are also ethical issues that's part of information technology. So with the use of information technology, there's always the possibility that there can be an increase in cybercrime, cyber fraud, identity theft, intellectual property theft. So as an organization, you can try to reduce that behavior of employees by developing codes and ethics. So some of the things that, some of the censorship of the types of information on the web may be what is considered public information, something that's posted by an organization and is made available to the public, and it may be political, religious, or cultural, and then it's deemed offensive and may be censored. Private information is information that's posted by a person, and that has constitutional freedom and is uncensored. So what censorship means is it's restricting access of that content to the web. There are countries out there that do have restrictions of things that can be put on the web. They can restrict access to the web altogether in Burma, China, and Singapore. There's also things that can be used like Cyber Patrol, Cyber Sitter, etc., that parents can use to monitor what their children are using on the web. Intellectual property, what that is it's an umbrella that protects copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets, and patents developed by people or business. Intellectual property is that property that comes from you and your brain and how you develop things. So there are different kinds of intellectual property. There's industrial property that protects inventions, trademarks, logos, and industrial designs. And there's also copyrighted material for literary and artistic works. And it can cover things like web pages, HTML code. There's also a fair use doctrine, an exception to the copyright law, which allows the use of copyrighted material for certain kinds of purposes. A trademark protects product names and identifying marks. A patent protects new processes. So some of the laws that are covering the software privacy is the Copyright Act of 1976. There was a revision in 1980. The Telecommunication Act, Communication Decency Act, and laws against spamming. There's also what's called cyber squatting, which is selling or using domain name to profit for someone else's trademark. There's also typo squatting, which relies on typographical errors made by web users and then typing a website address into a browser. There's what's called the digital divide, or information technology and the internet that's not accessible for all. So you may be in a poverty an area that has a great deal of poverty, and that may make computers less available to that particular population. So there's a large impact of information technology in the workplace. There's the creation of jobs, the increased consumers' purchasing power, and of course the direct effect on the nature of the jobs. Telecommuting is one of those things that is becoming more and more popular and being used more by organizations. So here's some information regarding information technology in the workplace. There's job de-skilling, and that's when skilled labor is eliminated due to high technology. There's virtual organizations like companies, customers, manufacturers, and they're connected via information technology. And there's telecommuting, which I think everybody is really starting to embrace, which is the ability to work from home. There are potential benefits, but also potential drawbacks. There is an issue with health when it comes to information technology. There might be vision issues, musculoskeletal issues, skin issues, reproductive system issues, stress issues. A lot of these are created because you sit in front of a screen all day, and you may not get up and move around as often as you should when you are working on a virtual environment or using information technology. There's green computing, which I think a lot of places are embracing, and that supports sustainable environmental, and it consumes the least amount of energy when it talks about the disposal of computers, servers, and computing devices. They've changed the design and the manufacturing specifications to be more conscious of that. So they may design products in a modular type of design. They may create search engines and computing routines that consume less energy. They can replace underutilized smaller servers with larger servers, or even using virtualization. They can use devices that consume less energy and biodegradable. They can allow certain employees to work from their homes, which reduces the carbon footprint because they're not driving. They can conduct meetings over computer network. They can turn on aidable PCs and recycle computer-related materials. So here are some of the key terms that we're talking about. You should probably go through those and take a look at them again. And this is also a summary of what we talked about. Social networking and Facebook are some examples of social networking sites that employers can take a look at. Email is, if you're doing your email through the email system at work, that's going to be owned by the company. And public information is posted by an organization or a public agency, and it can be censored. Children can be in particular, can be victims of the digital divide because of poverty and the inability to use technology. Information technology can create many new jobs, and green computing is a method for combating global warming. I will see you in the next module.